Walter Griggs never liked Friday nights. His house in Cedarville, a small, aging town in rural Missouri, grew unbearably quiet after dark. No kids visiting. No TV playing ball games. No calls. No knocks at the door. His wife, Diana, had passed away nearly 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. The funeral was brief. A few tired wreaths. His 2 children stood near the back like guests at a stranger's memorial. His daughter, Marie, left the state the week after. Said she couldn't handle the grief. His son, Darren, sent one text, "Hope you're okay, Dad. Stay strong." And then, silence. Walter had worked in highway construction for nearly 40 years. His pension was solid. The house was paid off. No debts. But none of it filled the space Diana used to take up. The air inside that house had changed. It wasn't just silence, it was weight. And it was getting heavier every week. At first, Walter stayed up reading news articles online. Then came the YouTube videos, young couples vlogging about their lives, arguing, cooking, laughing. He didn't envy them, but he studied them. There was something comforting about the chaos. Then one night, he downloaded a dating app. It was called Heartbridge. He filled in his profile honestly, 67 years old. Widowed. Retired. Likes tomatoes and mystery novels. He didn't expect anything. It took 2 weeks before he got a message. A young woman with almond eyes and dark waves of hair smiled from her profile photo. "Hi, you look kind." Her name was Layla Monroe. 22. Lived in Macon, Georgia. She worked in skincare. Loved red lipstick and meditation books. Said she was saving up to open her own spa. Walter figured it was a mistake at first. But her next message was clear. "I know the age gap's crazy. But sometimes older men are the only ones who actually listen." They messaged every day after that. At first it was, "Sleep well, Walter." Then, "I wish you were here." Eventually, "You make me feel safe in a way no one else ever has." Walter felt something stir inside him again. Something that had been asleep for years. He bought new cologne. Cleaned out his old wardrobe. He even enrolled in a virtual organic gardening class. Layla had said she loved fresh herbs. 3 months in, he'd sent her over $30,000. When someone at the diner asked him about it, Walter shook his head and smiled. "She's just trying to turn her life around. Everyone deserves a second chance." 9 months in, the total had reached $150,000. But to Walter, it wasn't money. It was hope. Layla told him her story like a sad song you already know the words to: single mom, alcoholic stepfather, dropped out of school, ex-boyfriend who hit her. Walter read every word like scripture. In Layla's pain, he saw echoes of the life he'd failed to save with Diana. One night, Layla messaged, "If you ever come to Georgia, I'll make you jambalaya. I've been practicing." Walter said yes. Quietly, methodically, he began preparing. He took his truck in for an oil change. Printed out her address and folded it into the inside pocket of his jacket. On the morning he left, he stood in front of the framed wedding photo in the living room. Diana's hand rested gently on his shoulder, her smile frozen in a time that no longer existed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The drive took 17 hours. He passed through Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and finally Georgia. Stopped only for gas and sandwiches. No music. No podcasts. Just the hum of the highway and Layla's voice, saved on his phone. "I can't wait to finally see you, Walter." He arrived in Macon just after 5:30 p.m. Layla texted she was still finishing up a shift at the spa and told him to check into a nearby hotel, Royal Oak Inn. $43 a night. Not fancy, but quiet. He checked into room 106. Opened his suitcase. Pulled out a small red velvet box. Inside was a white gold bracelet. Thin. Elegant. A modest gift. But to Walter, it was more than jewelry. It was a promise. At 7:32 p.m., his phone buzzed. "I'm outside." Walter stepped out onto the walkway. The sky was golden with early sunset. A gray Toyota idled near the curb. The passenger door opened. Layla stepped out. She was even more beautiful than her pictures, off-the-shoulder white blouse, fitted jeans, black heels. Hair curled just enough to feel effortless. She waved. "You must be Walter." He nodded, barely breathing. They went to a Cajun place nearby. Talked for 2 hours. Layla told him about her dream spa, her favorite candles, her dislike for spicy food. Walter told her about his tomatoes. His old dog, Bear. His life before everything went quiet. She laughed at his jokes. Touched his arm when she called him babe. Before dessert, he handed her the box. She opened it. Gasped. "Walter, this is beautiful." "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said, gently. "No one's ever made me feel like this." She looked down. Blushed. Then leaned in and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what that means to me." Back at the motel, Walter sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the closed door for a long time. He still smelled the faint trace of her perfume on his shirt collar. She had promised they'd meet again tomorrow. But Walter didn't know then that just 20 hours later, he would be standing at the door of her apartment, with a gun in his pocket, and a heart full of something much darker than love. Cedarville was the kind of town that looked exactly the same for 30 years, until one day, you realized it had decayed. Shuttered gas stations. An old grain silo with a crumbling top. A main street with a diner, a pharmacy, and a church that doubled as a polling place every election year. It wasn't the kind of place people moved to. You were either born there or got stuck there. Walter Griggs had done both. He had lived on the same street since 1972. The same mailbox. The same kitchen tiles Diana picked out in '89. After she passed, nothing changed. Not even the mail stopped. His neighbors had faded too. The couple next door passed away within a year of each other. One of the mailboxes rusted shut. Kids who used to ride bikes down the street had long since left for cities with busier sidewalks and fewer ghosts. The only thing that changed was Walter's routine. He used to rise at 6 a.m., brew coffee, read the local paper. Now, he woke sometime between 2 and 4, his sleep fractured by phantom sounds, footsteps on carpet, a cough that wasn't his, the distant memory of a tea kettle. In those early morning hours, Walter started scrolling. It began with gardening videos. Then home repair. Then travel blogs. At some point, he stumbled upon younger couples vlogging about their lives, trivial arguments, meals, shopping trips. It was like peering through a window into a world he didn't know how to re-enter. Then came the dating apps. Walter didn't sign up to fall in love. He signed up because he needed to speak. He was tired of being invisible. Tired of speaking only to cashiers and customer service lines. Hartbridge asked for a name, age, location, interests. He filled it all out in lowercase. At first, it was awkward. One woman said he was sweet but reminded her too much of her grandpa. Another unmatched him after he sent a message that was too intense. All he'd written was, "I think trust is the only currency that doesn't lose value." Then came Layla Monroe. Her profile was sharp, flawless makeup, sunlit selfies, motivational quotes in her bio. "Healing isn't linear," one said. He sent her a message on a whim, "You seem like someone who survived more than you share." She replied within 5 minutes, "You have no idea." From that moment, the tone shifted. Walter wasn't just swiping anymore. He was listening. And she was speaking. Layla told him about growing up in Georgia. Her mother worked double shifts. Her stepdad was more fists than father. She got her first job at 14, lied about her age to clean motel rooms. She wanted to become a cosmetologist but couldn't afford school. Every detail sounded like pain wrapped in resilience. Walter believed every word. He sent her money to help with rent. Then for equipment. Then tuition. Each time, she said thank you with voice messages that cracked slightly, just enough to feel real. She never called him Mr. Griggs. Only Walter. And eventually, Angel. It had been 11 months since that first message. Walter's friends, what few he had left, never knew about Layla. He didn't want their pity or their judgment. He knew what they'd say: she's too young. You're being taken for a ride. But they didn't know what it felt like to be wanted. To wake up and have someone say, "Good morning, my favorite person." Layla sent photos, her making coffee, her holding a dog he'd never seen before, her trying on dresses she said she'd wear on their first real date. Walter didn't ask questions. He didn't want to poke holes in something he needed to believe in. It wasn't about lust. It was about meaning. She made him feel like a person again. Like a man with something left to give. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Walter knew she was performing. The filters, the perfect lighting, the way she avoided video calls. But he forgave it all. Everyone wears masks online, he reasoned. At least she was consistent. Then came the shift. Layla started dropping hints: "If only we were in the same state," or "I wonder if you'd still want me after everything." That last one stuck with him. He asked, "What do you mean?" She replied, "Just trauma stuff. I'll tell you when we meet. It's not pretty." Walter said, "I've seen worse." She said, "No, you haven't." Then silence. The next day, she apologized. Said she got overwhelmed. That she wanted to meet him soon. That she didn't want secrets between them. She didn't explain what the secret was. Walter didn't press. Instead, he asked, "What would you say if I came to Georgia next week?" She replied instantly, "I'd say wear something nice." That was all he needed. He packed like a man going to propose. Brought slacks he hadn't worn in years. Cleaned his shoes with a toothbrush. Bought a bottle of cologne he used to wear in the 90s. And then, on a whim, he stopped by a jewelry store. He didn't want to buy something flashy. Just a gesture. A bracelet. Simple. Classic. Something that said, "You matter." He didn't tell her about it. He wanted to surprise her. He left on a Wednesday morning. Gas tank full. Tires checked. Paper map folded in the glove compartment just in case. He took the long way out of town, passing the school his kids once attended, the bench where Diana used to feed birds, the corner lot where they used to sell pumpkins every October. He didn't look back. The road to Georgia was long and forgettable: trucks, trees, fast food wrappers. He played her voice notes on repeat. "Drive safe, baby. I can't wait to hold you." When he arrived, Layla looked just like the photos. Maybe even better. Her voice was smoother in person, her laugh fuller. She touched his hand during dinner, called him babe in front of the waitress, and smiled in a way that made Walter feel like the last 20 years hadn't been wasted. That night, back in room 106, Walter held the bracelet in his hands for an hour. He didn't give it to her yet. He wanted the moment to be perfect. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow would be better. But tomorrow didn't bring a future. It brought a secret. One that would destroy them both. Before she was Layla Monroe, she was Levi Monroe. But no one in Macon knew that. She had left that name behind the moment she left her childhood home, a rotting duplex on the edge of Atlanta where screams were more common than silence and secrets grew like mold in the corners of every room. Levi was born the middle child of 5. Their mother, Carol, worked at a laundromat during the day and cleaned offices at night. She loved her kids, but her love was conditional, quiet, obedient, Sunday school kind of love. Their stepfather, Glenn, wasn't quite as nuanced. He didn't believe in quiet or kindness. He believed in belts, Bibles, and beatings that lasted longer than prayers. By age 6, Levi had already learned that softness was a liability. He didn't like trucks or basketball. He liked lipstick. He liked helping his sisters braid their hair. He liked the way his mother's heels clicked on the hardwood floor. That fascination was innocent, but to Glenn, it was the first sign of something that needed to be fixed. At 13, Levi made the mistake of coming home wearing mascara. His sister had dared him, laughing. He'd gone through with it, smiling. That night, Glenn dragged him by the collar into the basement and locked the door from the outside. 2 days. No food. Just a King James Bible and a plastic bucket. When Glenn finally opened the door again, he didn't say a word. Just nodded as if the point had been made. It had. From then on, Levi learned to perform. Smile. Nod. Keep the wrists stiff. Speak deep. Never let the voice crack. But that performance didn't change what lived inside. The girl. The one who had no name but had always been there. She came alive in private. In stolen moments. And quiet songs hummed into the mirror when the house was asleep. She was graceful, patient, terrified. And she wanted out. At 17, Levi found the courage. He waited until everyone was gone, stole $140 from Glenn's wallet, packed a duffel bag with 2 changes of clothes, and walked 3 miles to the Greyhound station. He didn't leave a note. He didn't say goodbye. That version of him had to die for the next one to live. The bus took him to Savannah. A new city. A fake name. A flip phone that cost $12 and a job that paid $4 an hour under the table. She chose the name Layla after a girl she once saw in a perfume ad. Elegant. Confident. Untouchable. The last name, Monroe, came from a calendar hanging in the corner store. Maryland, platinum and perfect. Layla Monroe wasn't born. She was built. Piece by piece. Week by week. Hair first. Then nails. Then hormone pills bought in cash behind convenience stores. Eventually, voice training and savings toward surgery. Every change brought her closer to peace and farther from the past. She waited tables. Then worked the bottle service shift at a nightclub where the music never stopped and neither did the hands. The tips were good. But the job that finally paid the bills came later, when someone asked if she'd ever thought about doing cam work. It felt like poison at first. Sit in front of a camera. Talk to strangers. Smile like it was real. Pretend the loneliness wasn't soul-rotting. But it paid. One night, she made $800 in 2 hours. That was more than 3 weeks' rent. The next night, she made more. And more after that. It wasn't sex, not really. It was attention. Soft lighting, curated outfits, scripted laughter, and just enough vulnerability to keep them coming back. Men would pay to feel like they were rescuing her. She never called it lying. She called it surviving. Layla learned quickly how to read people. Who wanted softness? Who wanted sass? Who wanted silence? Most of the men were harmless, desperate types. Boring. Too old to be dangerous. Too sad to get angry. Then came Walter. He wasn't the first to say she was beautiful. But he was the first to mean it. He didn't just compliment her looks. He noticed her earrings. He asked about her dreams. He sent messages like, "You remind me of someone I lost a long time ago." And that's not a bad thing. Layla didn't know what to do with that. At first, she kept it professional. Quick replies. Emoji hearts. Thank yous. Then came the voice messages. Then the video clips. Never too revealing. Never face-to-face. Her camera never worked. But her voice made him melt. He sent money. Not in one lump, but steady. Grocery money. Tuition help. Birthday gifts. Dental work. She hadn't asked, not at first. But once the faucet opened, it didn't stop. By month 6, she was calling him babe. By month 9, she was planning a spa. By month 11, she was scared. Not of him. Of herself. She hadn't meant to let it go this far. Layla was good at boundaries. But Walter was kind. He was generous. He made her feel like she could stop running. Still, every time she looked in the mirror, she saw Levi staring back. Not on the surface, she had changed enough to pass. But inside, the secret sat in her throat like a ticking bomb. One that would ruin everything if it ever went off. One night, her roommate Coco confronted her. "Girl, how much has he sent you?" Layla didn't answer. "You know he thinks this is love, right?" I never promised anything. You never stopped him either. I just give him what he needs. No, Coco said, blunt. You give him a fantasy. And fantasies always expire. That night, Layla sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. She thought about telling Walter the truth. She even typed it. There's something about me you don't know. But she deleted it. Then typed again. I can't wait to finally meet you, baby. I hope you're ready for me. He replied instantly. I've waited all year. Nothing will ever come between us. Her heart thudded against her chest. She dropped the phone. Layla wasn't afraid of rejection. She was afraid of what a man like Walter would do if he felt betrayed. She hadn't lied about the trauma. She hadn't lied about being hurt. But now, her whole life, everything she had built, depended on one man's reaction to one sentence. I was born Levi. And she didn't know if she had the strength to say it. Not yet. Not tomorrow. But soon. She promised herself. When they met face to face, she would tell him. Everything. What happened next would not be a lie. It would be the truth. The whole truth. Even if it cost her everything. The Royal Oaken didn't look like much from the outside. Peeling paint. Flickering neon sign. 2 vending machines that only took quarters. But Walter didn't care. To him, it was neutral ground, somewhere between his old life and whatever came next. He'd arrived the evening before, after 17 hours of driving across 4 states. No accidents. No wrong turns. Just his playlist, her voice notes, and the red velvet box he kept checking every few hours to make sure it was still there. It was. Room 106 was at the far end of the first floor. Quiet. Not that Walter would have noticed the noise anyway, his mind was racing faster than his truck had. He barely remembered falling asleep that night. All he knew was that when he woke up, it was already late morning. He showered. Pressed his shirt. Set out 2 wine glasses and a bottle of red he'd brought from home. It was nothing special, just something to mark the occasion. He even folded the motel's cheap notepad into a little tent and wrote, "Dinner with Layla, finally." Then he waited. And waited. No text. No missed calls. He checked his phone every 5 minutes like a ritual. He refolded the blanket on the bed. Rearranged the wine. Brushed lint off his collar. The air grew heavy. Still, he told himself, she's just nervous. She's probably doing her hair. She'll come. At 6:42 p.m., she texted. Be there in 20. Promise. At 7:09, the knock came. Walter opened the door slowly, half expecting it to be a mistake. But there she was. Layla. Real. Glowing. More vivid than photos could ever show. Off-the-shoulder cream blouse. Soft curls cascading over one side. A small gold chain around her neck that shimmered in the hallway light. Her jeans hugged her just right. Her eyes scanned his face and softened. You clean up nice, Mr. Griggs, she said, smiling. Walter smiled back. You're even more beautiful than I imagined. She stepped into the room slowly, taking it in. The wine. The glasses. The effort. This is cozy, she said, walking past him. You make it feel like home. I wanted it to be special. She turned to face him. For a moment, there was silence. Then, can I hug you? He nodded. She leaned in. Arms around him. And for those 10 seconds, everything felt possible. They talked for almost 2 hours. About tomatoes. About spa ideas. About the dog she wanted to adopt. Walter told her about Diana, about Bear, about how hard it was to cook for one. Layla laughed. Touched his arm when she teased him. Called him babe like she'd been doing it forever. Then, without warning, Walter pulled the small box from the nightstand. He opened it and held it out. A white gold bracelet. Thin. Elegant. Simple. Layla gasped. Walter, you didn't have to. I wanted to, he said. Because no one's ever made me feel the way you do. She swallowed hard, eyes glistening, then leaned forward and kissed his cheek. Thank you, she whispered. You don't know what that means to me. The moment hung in the air like something sacred. But even sacred things can crack. Layla glanced at the wine glasses, then back at him. Before we go any further, she said, voice low, I need to tell you something. Walter blinked. Okay. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap. I should have said this before. I wanted to. So many times. But I was scared. Scared of what? Of losing you. Walter didn't speak. My name wasn't always Layla, she said slowly. I was born Levi Monroe. The words hit the room like gunfire. Walter blinked once. Then again. I transitioned when I was 17, she continued quickly. I've lived as a woman for years. This, what you see, is real. I'm real. But I couldn't tell you before we met. I was afraid. And I didn't want to lie, not anymore. Walter stood still. Silent. She looked up, voice trembling. Please say something. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Layla pressed forward. I never meant to hurt you. Everything I said, everything I felt, it was all true. But I owed you the truth. And this is it. His hands clenched. Then loosened. Then clenched again. You lied, he finally said. For a whole year. I didn't lie, she replied, calmly. I just didn't tell you everything. That's not different, he snapped. Her voice cracked. I know you're angry. I know this is a lot. But I need you to understand, this doesn't change who I am. Walter turned his back to her. He looked down at the bracelet in his palm, then set it down on the nightstand. You should go, he said, quietly. Layla hesitated. Walter. Go. She stood. Gathered her purse. Took one last look at him. I never meant to break you, she whispered. He didn't respond. The door clicked shut behind her. And then, Walter was alone. The wine sat untouched. The glasses still full. The room still lit, but now colder. The bracelet glinted under the lamp like a warning. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just stood there. Frozen. Somewhere between love and something darker. Walter didn't sleep that night. Not really. He laid on the bed in room 106, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, as the light from the motel's sign blinked through the closed blinds in slow, pulsing rhythms. Outside, cars came and went. Doors slammed. A dog barked. But inside, everything was still, except the thoughts racing in his head. She lied to me. She let me believe. She knew what she was doing. The bracelet still sat on the nightstand. Untouched. The red velvet box slightly ajar, as if it had exhaled something bitter into the air. At 2:17 a.m., Walter stood up. He didn't know what he planned to do. He only knew he couldn't lie there anymore. He opened the dresser. Third drawer. The revolver was exactly where he'd left it. Wrapped in a gray dish towel. Cold. Unassuming. Just wait and steal. He'd bought it on the way down, off a man he'd met in a parking lot in southern Kentucky. No questions. No paperwork. Just cash and a handshake. Walter didn't even know why he'd done it at the time. Maybe it was fear. Maybe instinct. Maybe some part of him had already seen the storm coming. He unwrapped the gun. Checked the cylinder. Loaded. He sat back down on the edge of the bed. The room buzzed. Not with noise, but with static. His fingers hovered over his phone. He typed. I need to see you. Then. I forgive you. And finally. Just come talk. He hit send. The message was delivered instantly. But the read never came. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Still no response. By 3:10 a.m., Walter was pacing. Fast. erratic. He muttered things under his breath, fragments of sentences, pieces of conversations that never happened. He saw himself in the mirror and didn't recognize what he saw. Then, something inside him clicked. Like a switch. He pulled on his jacket. Slipped the revolver into the right pocket. Not the inside breast, too obvious. Not the back, too risky. Right side, just deep enough. He stepped outside. The air was thick and wet. Crickets sang their mindless chorus in the trees nearby. The parking lot was mostly empty. He walked fast. 12 minutes. That's how long it took to reach her apartment. Apartment 3B. The porch light flickered above her door. Faint gold hue, like a warning. Walter stood there for a moment. The gun weighed heavy in his pocket, but his hands didn't tremble. He knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Footsteps. Slow. Then a voice, hers. "Who is it?" "It's me," he said. Calm. Quiet. "I just want to talk." A pause. Then the door clicked open. Layla stood there in a long gray cardigan, her hair in a loose bun, no makeup. Just her. Stripped down. Real. She looked surprised. Tired. "Walter, it's 3 a.m. "I know," he said. "But I needed to see you." She hesitated. Then opened the door wider. "Come in." Inside, the apartment was still. A single lamp in the corner. A half-empty cup of tea on the table. A photo frame face down beside it. She motioned to the couch. He didn't sit. Layla stayed near the kitchen island. Arms crossed. Guarded. "What do you want to talk about?" she asked. Walter's face was unreadable. "I've been thinking," he said. "About us. About everything." Layla nodded slowly. "Me too. I meant it when I said I forgive you." Her eyes softened just slightly. "That means a lot." "I wasn't sure. But you should have told me." "I know," she said. "I was afraid." "I gave you everything," he said, his voice tightening. "I gave you my time. My money. My trust. And I'm grateful. I never asked you to. You didn't have to ask." Silence. He stepped closer. Layla tensed. "I'm not mad because you're trans," he said. "I'm mad because you let me believe I mattered." "You do matter," she said quickly. "That wasn't a lie. I didn't fake what I felt. But you didn't tell me the truth. I was scared I'd lose you." "You did," he whispered. She looked at him. Her eyes welled. "I'm sorry," she said. He reached into his pocket. Pulled out the bracelet box. Held it up. "Do you know what this meant?" She nodded, eyes glistening. "I was going to give this to you that night," he said. "I was ready to build something." "I know," she whispered. He opened the box. Let her look at it. Then, without breaking eye contact, he let it fall to the floor. The soft thud echoed like a gunshot. "Walter. I just wanted the truth. You have it now." He took one step closer. "I don't think I do." Then another step. Layla backed away. And then, without a word, Walter reached into his jacket. She saw it in his eyes before she saw the metal. "No, wait, Walter." But the first shot had already rung out. The sound of the first shot had barely finished echoing before Layla staggered backward. Her hands went instinctively to her chest, blood already blooming across her blouse like an ink stain. Her lips parted in shock, but no sound came out. Her knees buckled. "Wait, Walter," she gasped, stumbling into the dining chair behind her. But he didn't stop. The second shot followed fast. Lower, to the side. It struck just above her hip. This time, she screamed. Her body crumpled sideways onto the tile floor, the chair clattering beneath her. She tried to crawl. One arm dragging, the other pressing against her stomach. Her blood left a red streak on the linoleum, dark and glistening under the lamplight. Walter stood over her, unmoving. No yelling. No rage. Just silence. His face was blank, drained of expression, like a man doing something mechanical, empty of soul. Layla looked up, eyes wide in disbelief. Please, please. Her voice cracked. Then, I'm sorry. Walter stared at her, breathing hard. His finger twitched over the trigger, but didn't fire. For a second, the weight of it all hit him. He stepped back. Layla groaned softly, her body curling onto its side, fingers twitching near the baseboard. Blood soaked her sweater. Her lips trembled. From the hallway, a voice called out. Layla? It was Coco. Walter turned. Panic snapped through him like a whip. He bolted. Past the doorway. Down the stairs. Through the apartment complex courtyard. His boots slapped against the wet concrete. Behind him, Coco screamed. Layla? But he didn't turn back. He vanished into the early morning darkness, coat zipped tight, revolver still warm in his hand. At 4:12 a.m., police dispatch received a frantic 911 call. A female voice, barely coherent, sobbing. My friend, she's been shot. She's on the floor, please, she's not moving, there's so much blood, just hurry, please. When first responders arrived at apartment 3B, the door was wide open. Inside, the scene was grisly. Layla lay on the kitchen floor, one arm stretched toward the hallway, the other limp at her side. Her eyes were open, but unfocused. Blood pooled beneath her, soaking the white tile and dripping into the cracks. Coco was crouched beside her, pressing towels against the wounds. She's still breathing, she screamed. She's still breathing. The EMTs rushed in. One checked for a pulse. Shallow. Weak. Fading. They worked fast. Chest compressions. Oxygen mask. 4 fluids. But they all knew the timeline was razor thin. Layla was rushed to Macon Regional Medical Center. She was pronounced dead at 4:56 a.m. 2 gunshot wounds. 1 to the chest. 1 to the abdomen. Fatal blood loss. She never regained consciousness. Back at the apartment, detectives began piecing the puzzle together. The red velvet box still sat on the counter. Inside, the bracelet remained untouched. On the table next to it, a phone, screen smeared with blood. It was open to a message. From a contact saved as Walter Redhart. I need to see you. I forgive you. Just come talk. Coco told investigators everything. The man's name. His age. Where he came from. How long Layla had been talking to him online. The money. The lies. The fear. She told me last night she was gonna finally tell him the truth, Coco said. She was scared. She didn't know how he'd react. But she said she couldn't keep hiding. Detectives recovered surveillance footage from the apartment complex. At 3:15 a.m., a man matching Walter's description was seen entering through the east gate. At 3:27, the same man was seen leaving fast. Coat zipped. Looking over his shoulder. Witnesses in the complex described hearing 2 loud pops shortly before that. The timing aligned. But what sealed it was the motel footage. Just 12 minutes after the shooting, a camera at the Royal Oak caught Walter returning to room 106. Head down. Silent. Alone. Inside the room, police found signs of pacing, clothing half-packed, sheets wrinkled, trash can full of torn paper towels soaked in sweat. But the gun was gone. And so was Walter. A bolo was issued by noon. Be on the lookout, silver Ford pickup, Missouri plates. Elderly white male. Armed. Dangerous. Last seen headed westbound on Highway 80. The trail stretched across 3 states. Surveillance footage caught his truck at a gas station in Alabama. Then again in Mississippi. By the time police identified the Macon plate, he was already deep into Louisiana. But he didn't run fast. He stopped. Slept. Ate at diners. Witnesses described him as quiet, polite, distant. Paid cash. Left no name. But one woman noticed something strange. At a rest stop near Little Rock, Arkansas, Walter walked into a small convenience store. Bought water and aspirin. She recognized his face, not from news, but from a Facebook post shared on a local true crime group. It showed grainy CCTV stills from Macon PD. She took a picture. Showed it to the store clerk. "I think that man's wanted in a murder case." The clerk called police. Walter was arrested without incident 20 minutes later in a gas station parking lot outside of Pine Bluff. The revolver was found under the passenger seat. 2 shells fired. 4 unfired. The same gun used to kill Layla Monroe. When police questioned him, Walter didn't deny anything. But he didn't offer remorse either. "She lied," he said. "She made me think I was in love with someone real." "Did you intend to hurt her?" "I didn't intend anything," he replied. "I just wanted the truth." Investigators asked about the message. "Why send 'I forgive you'?" Walter looked up, and for the first time, his voice wavered. I wanted her to be who I imagined. One last time." In the courtroom, the prosecution built their case brick by brick. The trip was premeditated. The gun was purchased before the confession. The message was bait. The shots were deliberate. They played the security footage. They read the texts aloud. They showed the red box, the bracelet inside still gleaming. Walter's defense argued emotional instability. Shock. Betrayal. But Layla's friends, especially Coco, testified with force. "She wasn't trying to trick him," Coco said. "She was trying to live. She gave him everything. He just couldn't handle that she wasn't his fantasy." Walter never took the stand. The jury found him guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 40 years without parole. He will die in prison. But the question that haunted the courtroom wasn't just what happened. It was why. Why did a man who claimed to love someone shoot her the moment she was honest? Why does truth threaten those who live in illusion? And how many other Laylas have stayed silent, not because they wanted to lie, but because they feared the gun in drawer 3? The trial of Walter Griggs didn't make national news. There were no camera crews outside the courthouse. No sensational headlines. No documentaries, no protests. Just a few journalists sitting quietly in the gallery, scribbling quotes onto yellow notepads. To most people, it was just another homicide in another quiet town. But to the people who knew Layla Monroe, it was everything. The courtroom itself was small, only 4 rows of seating behind the bar, wood-paneled walls, a creaky ceiling fan that buzzed even during opening statements. Walter sat at the defense table in a gray suit that didn't quite fit anymore. His hands folded neatly. No cuffs. His hair was combed, and he looked every bit the man he used to be, retired, polite, forgettable. But nothing about what he did was forgettable. The prosecution didn't waste time. They presented a timeline built with digital breadcrumbs. Messages sent. Location data pinged. Surveillance footage from the Royal Oak Inn and Layla's apartment. A receipt from a gas station where he bought duct tape and wet wipes, items that, when asked about, he claimed were for the drive. Then came the revolver. Recovered from under his passenger seat. Matched the bullets. Serial number scratched off. A detective testified that Walter made no effort to hide the gun, but didn't seem surprised when it was found. "He didn't flinch," the officer said. "He said, 'It's already over, isn't it?'" They also showed the text he sent Layla the night of the murder. "I need to see you. I forgive you. Just come talk." The prosecutor paused after reading it. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, "he wrote that with a loaded gun in his pocket. That is not forgiveness. That is a trap." Layla's best friend, Coco, was the first witness to bring the courtroom to silence. She took the stand with shaking hands but a steady voice. "She told me the night before that she was going to tell him the truth," Coco said. "She was nervous. But she said she didn't want to live a lie anymore. That if he really cared about her, he'd stay." "She said those words?" the prosecutor asked. "She said, 'He deserves to know who I am. All of me.'" Coco paused, swallowing. And then, she said, but if this ends badly, promise me you'll tell the truth. All of it. In the gallery, a few people wiped their eyes. Walter stared ahead, expressionless. The defense tried to paint a different picture. They called it emotional collapse. They said Walter was blindsided by betrayal, disoriented by heartbreak, humiliated beyond comprehension. His attorney called a forensic psychologist who testified that Walter exhibited signs of adjustment disorder with depressed mood, which could trigger impulsive, uncharacteristic behavior when combined with trauma. He experienced what we call cognitive shock, the expert said. His identity was threatened. The version of reality he had invested in for nearly a year, emotionally and financially, collapsed in an instant. The defense used one word over and over: deceived. They described Walter as a victim of long-term emotional manipulation, a lonely man who had opened himself up to someone who wasn't honest with him. But that's the point, the prosecutor replied. Layla wasn't killed because she lied. She was killed because she told the truth. Then came the witness who changed everything, Walter's son, Marcus. No one expected him to testify. He took the stand in a plain navy shirt, no tie, hair freshly cut. He didn't look at his father. Not once. My dad used to be a good man, Marcus said. Hardworking. Honest. But after Mom died, something in him just broke. He spoke about the loneliness, the obsession with online connections, the money disappearing, the calls at 2 a.m. that went nowhere. He started talking about this girl, Layla. Said she was the only one who made him feel alive. I asked questions. He got defensive. I tried to tell him it didn't feel right. He cut me off. Why are you testifying today? The prosecutor asked. Marcus inhaled deeply. Because he didn't just kill her, he said. He erased himself. He let his pride, his pain, and his shame turn into something violent. He wasn't pushed. He chose. He turned his head, finally, and looked at Walter. I lost my dad before he ever pulled that trigger. Closing arguments were quiet. Measured. The prosecution ended with this. Layla Monroe didn't die because she lied. She died because, at the most vulnerable moment of her life, she trusted someone with her truth, and he decided that truth made her unworthy of love, unworthy of compassion, unworthy of life. She wasn't a fantasy. She was a human being. And he made her a secret again, with 2 bullets. The jury deliberated for just under 4 hours. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty. Second-degree murder. Sentencing, 40 years without parole. Walter didn't react. He blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked down. The bracelet was entered into evidence. Still in the box. Still pristine. The prosecutor didn't even touch it. He let it sit there, silent witness to everything that was never said, never mended. After the sentencing, Coco stood outside the courthouse with Layla's photo clutched to her chest. Someone asked her what she wanted people to remember. She didn't hesitate. She was brave, she said. Not for pretending, but for finally choosing to be seen. She wasn't killed by a secret. She was killed by someone who couldn't accept that the truth didn't belong to him. Walter was transferred to a correctional facility in central Missouri. He refused media interviews. In prison, he kept to himself. He attended no programs. Participated in no therapy. Never spoke about Layla again. But every year, on the anniversary of her death, Coco and a small group of Layla's friends post her photo online with one sentence. She told the truth. He pulled the trigger.